Hello, I would like about Perform 3D. Perform 3D, including two-part analysis phase and modeling phase. Modeling phase, including overall informations, grids, nodes, support, mass, sleeving, component properties, element, frame, load pattern, import and export, drift and deflections, structure sections, and limited states. Analysis phase, load cases, and analysis series. You can be model analysis result, energy balance, limited state groups, deflection shape, time history, hysteresis loop, moment and shear diagram, and pushover methods. Okay, how? Overall structure, including structure name, force units, gravity accelerations, and about structures. In these sections, you can define grids, including move, delete, interpolate, duplicate, supports, restraints, base, and mass. You can define mass from ETABS and import SAP, sleeving, rigid diaphragm, and in these sections, component properties, you can define elastic materials and sections and component sections. In elastic, FEMA beam concrete types, elastic properties, and you can define moment, positive and negative moments, strength loss, deformation capacity, cyclic degradations, and you can define FEMA column, FEMA column concrete types, sections, and you can define relationship, basic deformation actions, yield surface, strength loss, deformation capacity, and show the graph acceptance criteria, and beam type component, femur beam column, femur beam concrete column, and AEC, moment hinge, and moment curvature, shear, this menu, column, type component, femur column, and also femur column concrete, moment hinge, and bar type components, elastic bar, BRB buckling strings, brace, steel bar, and concrete struts, and also panel type components, infin panels, and panel zone connections, and can define energy isolation components, BRP, flow damper, cycling isolator, and you can and also you can define shear wall elastic sections, fiber, structure fiber in this model, and you can, after defined sections, you can sections, components, column, in these sections elements you can define columns, beams, slab, wall, and in properties, assigns, components, and you can define orientations, elements, beam, slab, wall. In these sections, frames, you can define frames, C, D, E, F, in this section dot pattern you can define element load, I can import and export models to OpenSys Navigator or other software. You can define drift and deflections. In these sections, you can define base shear, and shear in floor, and you can define limit states, including column, beam, wall, life safety, and phase analyze, and in this analysis phase you can define load case, gravity, static pushover, dynamic earthquake, response spectrum, all-load pushover, dynamic force. You can gravity, static pushover, nodal loads, displacement pattern, and mode shape. Dynamic earthquake, for example, lander. In these sections, you can define import record earthquake. For example, lander. You can show accelerations, earthquake, you can define analysis stories, you can define modal damping, set up and run analysis. In these sections, you can multi-analyze series, import result, model analysis result, plot, animate. You can define analysis model period, in these sections, energy balance, including a structure and element groups. Choose element groups column, plot, dissipated energy from element groups about 12%, and other element groups beam dissipation energy, beam about 18%, and you can show energy complete structure, dissipated inelastic energy, energy flow damper, viscous energy, modal damping, strain energy, kinematic energy. In this section you can obtain modal damping. In these sections you can limit state groups, life safety, collapse preventions, and other groups. In these sections, you can deflection shape shows limited states for groups, defined groups, life safety, or IO. Show earthquake records, plot, and you can show records, random. .5%. And you can component or color. In these sections, you can define displacement, velocity, accelerations. For example, centimeter, plot, about 10 centimeter, drift, structure sections, base shear, you can set up force units, kilograms, kilonewtons, plot. And you can save the plot times 3. And you can obtain hysteresis loops. For example, beam, female beam, column, moment rotations, force units, kilonewtons, meter, plot. Hysteresis loops, and save. You can also model and moment and shear diagrams. For example, moment and shear diagrams, beams. Units. Plots. Animate. For time history. Shows the diagrams, moment and then shear. In these sections, pushover methods, ATC 40, target displacement plots, AAC, and FEMA. You can usage ratio graph, for example, immediate occupancy, line, immediate occupancy, DC,